Welcome to the Dibley Diaries for this week. This week I've been thinking about what happens when our villages are disrupted by something which is beyond our control, and when something major happens which disrupts our village life. I guess I've been thinking about this as a response to thinking about how people's lives were disrupted by Palm Sunday, about what happened there. But I've been thinking about villages where normally they're just normal, quiet, sleepy villages, and something happens and it changes what's going on for them in the village. So one of the villages I've been thinking about, one of the events I've been thinking about, is the Glastonbury Festival, and actually how resilient the villages around the Glastonbury Festival are at festival time, how they have to adapt, how they have to work out what they're going to do in response to all the people who come to the festival. Obviously there's traffic disruption for them, there's noise disruption, there's all sorts of disruption for them, and how they just cope with that, they kind of get on with that. And I've been thinking about sometimes villages are disrupted for happy and good reasons, and there's only one time where I have had to actually ask the paparazzi to move away out of the churchyard or to move to a specific place, so that because something really happy is happening in our village and in the church. And then there are things which are disruptive, which are more traumatic or difficult or just strange responses to things. So it's a really strange response in some ways to what's happening at the moment with a terrible armed conflict around the world, and particularly in the Middle East, is that some villages in the UK are struggling with plane spotters. So their lives are being disrupted by these people coming into the village to see what's happening, to look at the planes, to just be there looking at the aircraft as they go past, which I mean is nothing on the same scale as the disruption of the villages suffering in the armed conflict, but it's just a peculiar thing. So what would we do in our villages if the world came to our village? If for a reason, good or bad or just curious, the world came to our village, how would we respond? Would we be friendly? Would we be antagonistic? Would we be resentful of the disruption it causes? Would we be pleased of the good publicity it's bringing to our village? What would it be like for us as a village if the world came to our village today? Thought for the week. This week I've been thinking about windows, and you might wonder why, and it's because as part of a set of emails that I get, one of the pictures this week was of a Renaissance painting. I'll put the link to it in the description, where our eye was being drawn to look out of the window. So I've been thinking, in sort of preparation for Palm Sunday, what was it like for the people in Jerusalem who looked out of their window and saw Jesus on his donkey? What were people thinking about? What was it like for them to see Jesus? So I've been thinking about the Romans. What was it like for them as they looked out of their window and saw Jesus on his donkey? Were they pleased to see Jesus, or were they just dismissive? Were they anxious that there was going to be a rebellion, or were they thinking, that fool is on a donkey, not even on a horse? What did they know about it? Did they know that any of the Jewish history or power play which had to do with a donkey rather than a horse? Did they understand that? Maybe they weren't anxious. Maybe they thought, actually, we've got plenty of troops, and maybe even some more coming. They might possibly have been arriving as Jesus was arriving on the donkey. There's some evidence that they would be coming in the other gate at the same time. So they might have been completely confident, actually, we have this entirely under control. Or they might be thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what this is going to be like. And then the Jewish authorities, what did they think when they looked out of their window and saw Jesus going past on a donkey? They would have known much more about the kind of theory, about the prophecy of what coming in on a donkey meant. They would have known that Jesus was making claims about his coming as part of a prophetic ministry at the very least. They would have seen the crowds. They might well have been anxious that there was going to be an uprising and that would be violently put down by the Romans. So what did they think? What did the Jewish authorities think when they saw Jesus going past on the donkey? What did they see and what did they think they were seeing as they glimpsed Jesus going past? Now, my understanding is that Jesus was also riding through some of the poorer parts of town. I'm not sure all of those people would have had windows, but they probably would have had a door. What would they have thought as they glimpsed Jesus going past? Would they have thought, oh, there's going to be something new, there's something going on, there's some hope for us, there's something which is going to be a really good thing for us, that something's going to happen now, something is going to seriously change for us as poor people here. Did they have hope? We don't know. There were plenty of people greeting Jesus in the street, thinking that there was going to be a change. Were people coming out when they saw what was happening, they would go out, they would see Jesus, they would go and join him. This week we do have a parade. We are in that situation where we are praying that the donkeys that are coming to join us aren't going lame or being too grumpy or otherwise ill. And then on Sunday we will be walking past people's houses with a donkey and a choir and our palm crosses and all the people in the procession. And that will be what we're doing. And I wonder what the people who look out of their windows at us will be thinking. What will they be thinking as the church community walks past their door? As they look out of their windows and see us walking past, what will they think? Will they rush out and join us? Maybe they will. Will they just turn away? Will they tut? Will they do something else? Will they think it's just trouble? Will they ignore what's going on? What will they think of our church with our donkey? One of the important things for Holy Week and Easter is it gives us time to respond to Jesus, to think about Jesus again, to respond to him from where we are now. So what would we do if we saw Jesus on a donkey walking past our window? Would we go out and greet him? Would we go and join the crowds? Would we stay where we were? Would we not want to join in the fuss? What would we do if we saw Jesus walking past our window riding a donkey? And that's the key for us for Holy Week and Easter. This is Jesus. What are we going to do when we encounter Jesus this Holy Week and Easter? How are we going to respond to him this Holy Week and Easter as it approaches? For the Dibley moment for this week, I asked some people what was the strangest thing that you'd ever seen out of your rural vicarage window. There are a few contenders. I once saw a sparrowhawk kill a pigeon in our back garden. I mean, the whole circle of life is there. I had some various other contenders. Someone who'd seen the air ambulance land just outside where they were. Had somebody who'd seen the wurzels who happened to be playing in a field kind of next to where their house was. Had various responses of chickens, and someone even had military helicopters doing maybe manoeuvres that they should perhaps not have been doing. But the person who I've decided wins this week is the person who had a marquee on fire visible from the window of their rural vicarage. So you never know quite what you're going to see out of your window in a rural vicarage. If you have any other contenders for this, please do put them in the comments below. But current winner, definitely a marquee on fire. Well, that's it for the Dibley Diaries for this week. I pray that you and your village, however large or small, have a really blessed week where you can all encounter Jesus.